Okay guys, once again welcome to this video tutorial by eLoops. Still on development of registration and login page. Okay, we've created our registration page. Now this is the script that handles the registration. Of course, the first thing we'll do is connect to our database, then start session, because we will create session variables once we log in from the user data in the database. Then I just put this here to check for errors. This is optional. If you don't want to, you may not include that. Then once the submit button is clicked, if you like to use if is set submit, whatever you name the button, you go ahead. So I prefer to check like this. Then I grab the user input, that's the email, the password, the repass, that's confirm password, then user phone. Then I also, here I checked if any of this is empty. If there is anyone that is empty, that is if they skipped filling any of the form fields, they will be redirected back to the page, and this through the get method will display empty field right there. I think I showed you empty field using the get method. Okay, now we'll continue. If I also check if the email is a valid email format. If it's not, we'll return invalid email. If you go back there, I set it somewhere there. Invalid email right under the email field in the form. Then I checked password. If the password does not match the confirmed password, this is the password, this is the confirmed password. If the two are not equal, that is not value, not equal. And by now I assume you know the difference between when you say this variable is equal to this variable and this variable is equal to that variable. Okay, I believe you know the meaning already. So if they don't match, then we return this error message there that they don't match. Okay, continue. Then having checked all this, if after all this we are still on, then we check if the email, that is, because the person is still registering, remember, and we want our email to be unique in the database. So we check if the email is already taken. So we use the email variable there. Okay, using our prepare statement, we check, we select email from whatever you named your table, where that is that. I changed my table name so that it will not reflect exactly what I have and some of the things I used down there. So we'll now check this variable, we'll bind this parameter, this input to this. Remember to use your prepare statement so that hackers will not write malicious code into your database and probably drop your table and wipe everything in your database. And even though I do this and other methods I use to prevent hackers from getting access to my database, I still back up my database on, in fact, every second, every time I create backup. I always back up my database so that if I notice anything, I rewrite my code and I plug in my backup and still back up again. So there will always be some malicious or evil-minded people out there that will want to use what they know for bad and not for good, for whatsoever reason. So you cannot be too careful when it comes to programming. So next thing, if we have any such email existing, that's we check number of rows and is greater than 0, then we return this error message, email is unavailable. But having gone through all this, if we pass through all these tests, then we now proceed to insert the user data into our table. There we hash our password there, then we insert into our database depending on whatever we have there. Then we'll bind this parameter. Sorry, I made a mistake here. This is an old stuff I did before. I no longer need this. This is expired already. And that's 1, 2, 3. I don't need that. Okay. Alright, I don't need that too. I don't need that. I don't need that. Okay. I think we are good now. Yeah, we're good. So I will hash our password over there. This is how to hash your password. This is the input, what the user gave us when they submitted the form, the password. So this is how to hash this password using this password hash method, decrypt. We use this method to hash the password, and whatsoever result, the hashed version of that password we get, we save in this variable, whatever you want to name your own variable. I named mine pass hash. So using my prepare statement once more, I write to the database those values, the email, that's the email variable, the email value, or the user, whatever the user supplied over there. That's it. Then pass hash is the new hashed password. That's what I'm sending to the database, not the raw password the user sent. No, I remember I hashed it first before sending it to the database. Then also the phone number. Then you execute. Then you can create session variables there to save the email and the phone, and also you can set this status to 1. This is what I know I did before, back in the days. So now I prefer to say equal to 1, and you close that statement. See, one thing I forgot is, if you are going to use this password hash method, then in your database, please ensure that the character length is long enough to avoid problems. I always make my database. I set my password to varchar, and I use character length just to avoid stories. I use character length that is equal to, I think I use what do I use? I use 255, yeah, 255. I set it like that, minimum 200. Just set it, use the maximum value, because you don't know the length. It's actually long, so just use the less to avoid stories. Just use that. Then remember your prepare statement. The way you write your prepare statement. This is the number of columns we have in the database that I'm writing to. Of course, I have my ID. User ID is there, but that one is I set it to auto increment, so it fills in automatically. I don't have to write manually to it. Then I said these are the placeholders for the prepare statement. You see, I'm not writing any values directly into my database. Whenever I'm querying my database, I don't grab user input and send it directly into my database. That is how hackers hack our database. That's how they hack your database. They start injecting some malicious code that is generally known as SQL injection. So to prevent that, I use placeholders. You don't write directly to my database. No, Now these are my placeholders. Then these are the direct inputs whatsoever they send. So they are now bound to this. I bind them to this. They are not directly sent to the database. No, they are bound to this, and we can check the database safely and return whatsoever comparison that we want to return without actually writing this to database directly to avoid whatever. So the number of characters we have here should be equal to the number of variables you have there. Remember, we have we use mostly integers and strings. So if you set your database to, let's say, varchar, which is strings, treated as strings, you use s here. But if we are talking about integers, you use you use I for integers, int for the int character, int type, data type. So you execute, we create a variable from the input we have already, and then we can also grab the ID in the table. This is how I wrote this. This code is from is not too old actually, but it's just from last year, early last year. So I wrote it this way. I don't write this way anymore anyway. So, but this is quite useful, and you can use it anywhere. So I grab the user ID from the same table name I used there, where the email is equal to that email that the user supplied, which we bound to this placeholder. And if you scroll up, you see the input there. So we bind this email to this email, we execute, we store our result. So we bind whatever result we get from this ID column to this ID variable here. You always use your num rows when you use this prepare statement like this. Then this is your session. We start a session with the whatsoever value we got from here, so that we have our user ID to work with throughout the site. Since immediately after registration, the user is automatically logged in. Once we complete this process, remember I closed my STMT here. I didn't want to reuse it here, no problem, because I closed it, but to avoid confusion, I just used another variable here, which is closer to what I was doing. I closed it here also. Then what else? Then I'm through. Next thing is to redirect to wherever I want the user to be taken to, maybe dashboard, back office, or maybe back to the index page. Then I change the nav bar. Instead of saying things like sign in, register, I'll remove those and display a new nav bar if this is true. If this is a set, you display a new nav bar. Else, you display the default nav bar, which is login, register, and all those. That's what most web developers out there normally do. So if everything failed, that's why I always put this in an if statement to check if we are able to query the database. Now in this case it's else. If everything failed, we will still have our query failed error message. So that's it about that. I hope this helps someone out there to solve their problems when they are developing a registration page. If you've not seen our previous video that we did on how to create the HTML part, the form actually, please go and check out our previous video. In the next video, I will show you how to create a login page. After you have created your registration page like this, how to create your login page, secure login page. You can use this anywhere in any standard of website. You can also improve on it, but this is good actually. So remember to subscribe to my channel, invite your friends, tell other programmers out there about this site. Those that want to learn, you can also grab so much from here. I'll be uploading more videos as they come. Usually what I upload here is actually projects I've done and the ones I'm doing and all. So some of which the websites are offline for security reasons. So you learn from what you can actually use to work, not just beginner tutorials. So take care. Thanks.